everyone, it's Michelle back from Alaska, and it was amazing. I'm going to put together a video with pictures and movies from the trip. It'll be amazing. It's really long, a lot of data to sort through. We're a little crazy, wanted to capture every moment. It was awesome. And I learned a few things, confirmed a few things that I thought I'd share with everybody because things I hadn't thought of, some things I have, but I thought it would be helpful for everybody else. So the first thing, within the first few days of being out on the trip, it was confirmed. Buying the First Gear adventure riding suit, the jacket and the pants, best purchase ever. Needless to say, it rained on us a lot while we were on our trip, and we've heard this, and you know it. You kind of have this little hope in the back of your head that it's really not going to be so wet and cool, but it is. But it's awesome. I wore that the entire time, and it just starts raining, you just keep riding. Stops raining, you keep riding. It was amazing. So definitely, check out some of that kind of gear if you're planning on going up there, because it seemed pricey when I bought it. Paid for itself. To go along with that, some of the other best thing I bought were the Under Armour cold gear. I had the leggings and the shirts underneath. For the most part, that's all I had on. I wore it every single day, wore it every single night. Just left it on all the time. It was awesome. There were a few days where raining all day long. If it was, real cold, maybe 50 degrees and raining all day, I did put my heated gear on underneath. So I had my first gear, and then I had my heated gear, and then my base was my Under Armour. Perfect. Couldn't have done it better. All those other clothes I brought, really? Not necessary. It'd save yourself a lot of space by not packing any of that stuff. But this is my opinion, well, an opinion of my riding partners on the trip, so for what it's worth. The second thing that I learned the hard way were tires. I usually run Michelin Commanders. I love Michelin Commanders. I usually get 18,000 miles out of a pair. They're sticky, in their corners. I like them. I ride here in Colorado with them. Learned that they are a little softer than other tires. Rolled into Anchorage for my oil change. Everything checked out great. Changed my oil. Then the gal says to me, "Oh, and did you know that your tires are at 330 seconds?" And I'm like, I don't think that's possible. I'm like, what? I'm sure I had that look. What? And Doug had that look. What? Because I had gotten brand new tires before the trip. I always get brand new tires before a long trip. I don't want to be dealing with that on the road. Plus I have a guy here in town. I get a good price. And she goes, yeah, no. And I had 4,000 miles on those tires. Well, actually, probably 5,000, because I had also gone down to Texas. So I was like, okay. So I got a third of the life. Then it was explained to me from the guys who put on my tires that, they're softer compound tires, the Commanders, and on the roads that they have there, the chip seal, and, there's some, different things in their tires, or in their roads, silica, something, but they said they just eat away at soft tires. Doug got brand new tires at the same time I did. He's riding the Dunlop American Elites. Perfect. So unfortunately I got brand new tires, which is fine. You get new tires, and she's like, well, you could just let it go and then wait till you get a place. But that brings us to the point of, well, there's not a lot of other Harley dealers. There might have been some other dealers who had tires along most of the routes. Once you get out into Canada, there really isn't anything. Which brings us to point number 3. I always say, get the roadside assistance through HOG. If you're a HOG member, if you're not, whatever if you have a club, if you have insurance, whatever you can get. But through the HOG roadside assistance, it's an additional $50 annually. They tow you to the nearest dealer. They pay up to $1,000 of, other expenses that you might have occurred, extra hotel rooms, that kind of stuff. Coming into Whitehorse in the Yukon, we hit a lot of construction, a lot of deep, thick, dirt and mud. Rolled out of that. I don't know if that was like the thing that tipped it over the edge or not, but Doug's rear bearings went out. Can't ride the bike. It's totally, we kind of limped into Whitehorse in the Yukon. There used to be a Harley dealership there, but there isn't anymore. So, called Hog Roadside Assistance. Sometimes that can be a struggle. It's late in the day or whatever. But the end result was they towed his bike to the nearest dealer. Well, the nearest dealer was in Smithers, British Columbia, 750 miles away. So, for $50, he got his bike towed 750 miles to get those rear bearings done. So, you don't want to leave home without those little things. I mean, I know sometimes I do all those, do I have our roadside assistance, actually have like evac and all that kind of stuff. And it's, usually $50 or so gets you that coverage, but if you need it, I would hate to have known what the tow bill came to tow the bike. And that's one way. I mean, the tow driver had to go back the other way, another 750 miles, and I'm sure he charged that out. So, just saying, it's one of those things where when you use it, you're like, yes, I know this is why I buy this every year. You don't ever want to use it, but it's better to use it or have it and need it and not have it. So, the other thing, I have satellite radio, and I subscribe to the weather. So on my bike, I have a Rushmore bike, so I have the infotainment center. I get the nice little screen. I can see the radar of the weather, where it's going to be, and all this kind of stuff. I haven't called Sirius XM, but I would think that, I don't know if there's an additional package or based on where you live, but the minute we crossed over into Canada, nothing. It looked like, it doesn't say, it doesn't have the data. It just looks like there's no weather of any kind. So since we were under a big cloud that hailed on us, and the weather app said on the satellite that there was not a cloud in the sky, pretty sure that once you hit Canada, unless you have Canadian service of some sort, your U.S. satellite weather ceases functioning there. Actually, it didn't function in Alaska at all either. I know we were back in the U.S. technically, but I'm assuming because of the remote location for the radio and the weather, once we hit Alaska, all we got was the big screen that said no signal. Searching for signal, no signal, signal lost, variation of those. So if you're the person who relies on your satellite radio and that's what you love to listen to, and you'd be sad with no music. I mean, some people don't like music. I personally do, but I usually also use my iPod so I can listen through the helmet. So I had my iPod, but if you rely on either one of those, yeah, no. No signal. Let's see, what else we learned? Well, no service in general. So, and I you think this and you anticipate it, but, when you're used to being connected all the time, your phone always has service. Sometimes you have bad service, but at least you have service. Most of the trip on the Alaskan highway, and in a lot of places we were in Alaska, I mean, unless you were in Anchorage or Fairbanks, one of the big towns, you pretty much had no service. I'd never seen that on my phone before. No service, just nothing. You get into a service area and suddenly voicemails and messages would all pop up, and you'd be like, oh, got service. And that's something to consider. And it's great to have no service. You're like really out there living the adventure and the ride, and you're just, out there. But in the case of, maybe your bike breaks down or you need something happens at the side of the road, you do want a way to get a hold of people. I personally have a InReach, used to be DeLorean, Garmin bought them now. There's different ones, the Spot, You know, I like the inReach personally. You can set up your trip. You know, you can send your friends and family the link so they can see where you are. Oh, there they are. You know, I mean, it tracks, it uploads every 10 minutes. They can see where you are. It also has an SOS feature. So I hit the button, it'll send out an emergency signal that I need help, you know, and emergency services will come to your location. That never stopped working. So I'm not sure, you know, I'm sure that the satellite radio people have different, you know, satellite services, but the actual GPS communicator that we were using was sending signal the whole time. It also does have text features, you know, if you need to text somebody you haven't seen, no one's seen or heard from you in 4 days, but you still appear to be moving. I mean, you can send a text that says, you know, I'm fine, you know, I'm hiking in the middle of nowhere or whatever. So definitely I would recommend that, you know, because you really are in the middle of nowhere. I mean, there were days where we would ride and see, you know, a few bikes, you know, really not much towns, that kind of thing. So you're really just out there, which is good, as long as everything's good. So, let's see. Good camping gear. This is one of the things, it was confirmed, you know, we spent a lot of money, a lot of time searching out, you know, tents, and then especially sleeping bags and sleeping mats to get the most small, compact, fit on the bike, but you also want to be warm. When I put out $400 on a Sea to Summit sleeping bag, I was like, this is either the dumbest thing I've ever purchased or the smartest, you know, because it just seems like a lot. Even though when I put it up against, you know, well, what does it cost to get a hotel, and are there even hotels where you're staying? I mean, there was a few places we stayed. There was a campground. I don't know that I would have seen a hotel for miles, hundreds of miles. And if there was one, well, it might be pretty pricey. So getting that really good camping gear was awesome. I mean, a lot of nights it was 40 degrees. In my Under Armour, in my sleeping bag, on my pad, comfy, cozy, you know, slept great. You know, I mean, just putting out that extra money and getting quality stuff. Really at the end, I mean, I was thankful. I mean, you can do whatever you want, but, you know, I appreciated that extra comfort. And waterproof bags. I mean, I talked about all the rain and the rain suit. And I think, you know, I've mentioned before, I got a Wolfman bag. You know, they're the big waterproof bags, big heavy vinyl. Use those instead of Harley bags or tea bags that are that cloth material. You have to put the cover on and all that kind of stuff. You know, like I think my medium size one was like $130. Awesome. Money well spent. Never worried about it. All your tent, you know, all your camping stuff's in there. You know, it's dry. The one thing that I didn't really think about, which was fine, I mean, I bring a tarp with me, so I'm good. I always put a tarp under my tent, is the one day we put our tents down and it was pouring rain, and I didn't want to put the wet tent in the dry bag with all the other dry stuff. You know, your bag and stuff's in there, you don't want all that to get wet. So just rolled, you know, put the tent back in the bag, rolled it in my tarp, and then strapped it onto the back of one of the bikes. So it was good that I had that. I mean, you never think of it, but it was money well spent. And the last but not least thing, and I knew it, and it was kind of like an afterthought. It wasn't on the main list for a long time, till, you know, a friend brought it up, but fuel additive. So I don't know, you know, not everybody does it, I suppose, but I always put top grade fuel in my bike. And you know, you're in the middle of Alaska, you're on the Alaskan highway. I mean, the minute we hit the highway, the first gas station that we got to fuel up had 2 pumps from like 1960. Literally, you know, you had no credit card thing, you have to push the thing up in the middle of this lot that was like off-roading. You were like, okay, this is the beginning. We're really out here where there are just like none of this stuff going on. So you roll up to the pump, you know, and it's like 85. And you're like, oh, you know, I like 91 in my bike, whatever. So, you know, just put in the additive, put in the fuel, go in and pay, and be on your way. So I had a whole bunch of those in my bike. I don't remember how many I had, probably like 10 or so. Used them all. Ended up buying some additional ones in Anchorage just in case because it was getting low. So, you know, if that's how you roll with your bike and that's how you like your fuel to be, definitely want to bring those with you. So, that's all I have for things I learned. Well, I'm sure I learned more, but those were the top things that stuck out in my head that I thought I'd pass on. Some things I've heard before, others I haven't, like the tires. That was a good lesson to learn. Never had heard that or read that in any of my research. So we will see you soon. Stay safe. Keep the rubber side down.